short my part and just introduce, I think you will know who he is, Zach Brown, CEO of McLaren Racing.
Afternoon.
Zach, I read your book, so I brought it along. I'm sure all of you, if you haven't bought it, then get on Amazon straight away and order it up. Great read. Part of it reminded me of a quote I read recently from Novak Djokovic, who said the reason he carries on playing tennis is because he just likes hitting tennis balls. Clearly from the book, you just love motor racing.
Love motor racing. He's also pretty good at hitting tennis balls. So hopefully he'll do well in Australia this weekend. But yeah, I've been a petrol head my whole life ever since I was first introduced to Formula One in 1981 at the Long Beach Grand Prix. And so turned a 10-year-old kid who had no idea how to get involved in motor racing, and very fortunate to be working with all the men and women at McLaren. We're having a pretty good run.
You are, yeah, you are. We've got some McLaren fans in here, it seems. You are having a pretty good run. We are going to talk. We are going to maybe not say 1,000 words, but a picture does paint more than 1,000 words. I think we got a picture of the 2017 McLaren. Oh, there's a picture of your book. Look, there we are, just in case anyone didn't realise you had a book out. There's a picture of the 2017 McLaren. Very nice. It's a Formula One car. But one thing you might notice, everybody, is there's not many brands on that car. If we go straight away to the 2025 car, slight difference. What have you done to make that difference?
Worked with our partners to give them what they want. We've got the best group of partners in the world, the MasterCards, the Googles, the Dells, the Ciscos. I mean, these are the best companies in the world. We're fortunate to be affiliated and associated and working with them. And you know, when I stopped racing after my racing career, I focused on bringing partners to motorsports, and it was simple the approach, which is where you're trying to take your business, and let me figure out how in the world of motorsports, Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, how we can help you build your business off the back of motorsports. We take that same approach today. I had the benefit of, when I had my agency, of working with all the Formula One teams, and we've all come a long way, but there was a bit of a right seller mentality, which is kind of, here's what we have to buy. Do you want to buy it? If it works, is kind of up to you or not, where we take a very strong interest in making sure the program works, because then you retain partners for a long time. You
use the word arrogance a lot. When you came into McLaren, there was an arrogance. You've just mentioned there, maybe an arrogance of Formula One teams not understanding that partner-team relationship. It seems that you've got that arrogance out of the business, and Formula One's changing very much so.
Yeah, it's an unbelievably competitive sport. 2% separates the best from the worst, so I can't think of an industry where the worst is actually really good. So the minute you underestimate your competition, you know, on or off the track, everything is a competition. On the track, off the track, for partners, for employees, for technologies. And, you know, in sport, you know, unlike my business, which was fortunate to just grow year over year over year for 20 years straight, in sport, there's not a single sports team in the world that hasn't had ups and downs. And so that is nerve-wracking. And I'm motivated a bit by the fear of failure. So I wake up every day right now, you know, we've won the last 2 championships. I really want to keep that going, but I know it's a matter of when, not if, that you get knocked off the top of the mountain. So you just need to kind of dust yourself off and go again. And I think arrogance is a terrible quality. I think ego is good as long as it's contained and doesn't creep into arrogance, because having an ego is just being about being proud. But arrogance is not a great quality.
There's plenty of egos in the F1 paddock, isn't there?
Yeah, every pit lane.
Yeah, while you were talking, there's some pictures of you guys celebrating the championship, and of course, that one I think was called the Pixel Selfie, which shows your integration into your partners. It isn't just any longer a sticker on a car, is it? It is about that integration. And I think something you haven't got credit for outside of the sport is the fact that basically when you came into McLaren, you built a marketing agency within McLaren, and that hadn't been done before, had it?
No, we have 160, 170 people, and we have three leaders: Lou McEwen, our CMO, Nick Martin, and Matt Dennington as co-chief commercial officers. And Nick focuses a bit more on new business, and Matt looks after our existing partners. And they've done a wonderful job. They've been with me from kind of day one. Matt actually used to work with me at my old agency, so we very much have brought the same mindset. We're more interested in who our partners are. Shapes and sizes kind of take care of themselves. So we're more interested in, we want to be affiliated and associated with that brand because our partners do two things for us. If they're B2B and tech, they help us run our business better, develop the car better, communicate better, have a better finance and HR department, or they're consumer brands and they help us engage with our fans, bring in new fans. So our partners are very much integrated into our racing team.
Not only have you changed the face of marketing, I would say, obviously Liberty Media have got a huge impact that they've had on F1 as a sport, but the team itself, you mentioned there about winning in 2024, 2015, the team finished 9th in the championship, didn't it? I mean, it's been a rocky road. And one thing I wanted to bring up here is we're at the World Economic Forum. During that journey, you've had some bumps in the road financially as well. Again, not necessarily everyone in the room wouldn't necessarily know, but in 2020, yes, COVID was an issue, but behind the scenes, McLaren also had some financial struggles as well, didn't it?
We were losing about $125 million a year when we joined. Now, because it's company house, it's all public, even though it's a private company. I still don't quite understand how that works. But we make $125 million a year. But it's not about, for our shareholders, of course, they want us to be a thriving business. But first and foremost, they love McLaren and they love the people of McLaren and they want to win. That's our most important KPIs. If you're able to do that, then kind of the economics follow. But it's a fantastic team with huge history. We were in a really bad place when we joined, and even though our performance was starting to turn, the economics were pretty dire. But also when Liberty invested in the sport, that changed the dynamic. We brought in a cost cap because the sport was in a place where if you were an owner of a team, it was how much can you afford to lose. And so when you have big OEMs coming in that are getting tremendous commercial returns, so therefore they can afford to spend more than a McLaren. We're a small road car company and a racing team. It was just impossible to keep up. So when the cost cap came in, which came in right at the time as COVID, so timing was opportunistic because we actually brought the cost cap down from what was being discussed. That's why you see the field separated by 2%. Where in the good old days, when I grew up watching Formula One, the field was spread. There was a 107% rule, which was if you weren't within 107%, you were out. Now it's unbelievably competitive. So the sport's in a remarkably healthy place.
And the value has increased. That loyalty that your shareholders showed you, the belief in the business, if I remember rightly, my notes are correct, the valuation during COVID was £550 million. There's talk, numbers in the press, that valuation of McLaren is 5 billion. That is an amazing set of statistics for a sport that has been around 76 years now.
Yeah, I think the sport had financial problems, right? We had challenges. Force India was bought out of bankruptcy. Now Aston Martin. Williams was on the verge, been acquired. Sauber was headed towards administration, was acquired by Audi. So you had not long ago, pre-getting this cost cap in place, you always had 2 or 3 or 4 teams in trouble. Now, you've just had Cadillac come in. They had to work very hard to get in, and they wrote a check for $400 or $500 million just for the entry. So it's amazing in a 5-year period, you could have acquired McLaren. That same price tag is what it costs just to get a piece of paper to say you're allowed to show up. I think the sport's always been global and huge. It's only 11 teams now. Most other sports have 20, 30 teams. So the scarcity, it's global. And now that every team has the opportunity to be profitable and competitive, has made it very attractive. So you see the investors that have come in are high quality investors.
And my understanding is that the queue for people to put money into Formula One teams is nearly as long as the queue to come and see you today. So we'll see if there's changes there. We're hearing, maybe some changes of ownerships. We'll come back to that in a minute. But part of that, as you mentioned, is the growth, specifically in America. What do you put that down to? I mean, the growth has been amazing, hasn't it? A few years ago, we had 1 Grand Prix that was sort of okay. Now we've got 3. There could be capacity for more?
Yeah, I don't think we'll do more because we're in a great place in North America, and I think we need to focus a little bit more on Asia Pac at the moment. We're in a great place in the Middle East. Europe is the home of Formula One, and in America and Americas, 4, 5, 6 races between Mexico, Brazil, and the 3 races in Canada. I think Formula One's always been an amazing sport. I've loved it forever, but it was a very exclusive sport, and I think what Liberty did, and Netflix is a huge contributor to this, which I don't think any of us kind of saw coming.
Certainly not Mercedes and Ferrari.
No,
didn't take part in the first
play
series.
in year one. And I think we made the sport very inclusive. And so we showed people how the sport works, not just on the track, but off the track. It's very political. So I think it's a sport that's as fascinating off the track as on, where most other sports, it's all about kind of the field of play. You hear about trades and things of that nature, but there's not kind of Netflix covering sport off the track in the same way they do with Formula One. So I think opening it up, and then there was a few areas that we really needed to grow that was going to hold back Formula One. It was North America from a geographic point of view, and then from a demo point of view, we needed more diversity, more women, and a younger audience, and that's been delivered in spades, and 75% of our new fan base is exactly that audience. So I don't see any headwinds for the sport other than the stuff that we'll read and hear about here in Davos. But, I think the world's a pretty unsettled environment, but I don't realistically think that changes. So you just need to kind of learn to live in that space. But the sport, 24 races, we've got demand for probably 28 or 30. I'd like to see us go to 20 fixed races and then maybe 8 that rotate every other year as a way to expand the geographic reach, but we can't do more than 24 races a year. It's logistically impossible.
As you say, the growth is at the moment, and there's still a lot of headroom, as you say, mainly down to North America and the female audience. How long is it before we have a North American driver or a female driver on the grid? So these fans have got someone that looks like them, that sounds like them, that lives near them.
I think from an American driver, the closest that we have, and I think he'll get in, is Colton Herta with the Cadillac team, the owners of the Cadillac team, because it's actually TWG, Mark Walters and Dan Taurus, who own the Andretti team in IndyCar, so they're taking their IndyCar driver and preparing him for Formula One. He'll do a season of Formula 2, which is the second tier. So I think we're a year away from a U.S. driver. Women racing driver, we have 2 teams on what's called the F1 Academy. We now have, I think it's 4 female drivers on kind of on the payroll, if you'd like. So
all called Ella.
All called Ella. True. And that wasn't by design. That was by coincidence, but it does make it easy. It makes it easy. Other than when you say Ella and everyone turns around, it's like, well, now we've got to start numbering them. And I think what we need to do, like in all sports, to become Lando or Oscar, there's 10,000 kids that want to become Lando or Oscar. And so what we need to do, which we are doing, is create awareness and opportunity at the grassroots. Back when I was karting, I don't kind of recall a female karter. Now you go to a karting track, and there's lots, still not to the quantity that you need, but that's coming. You can see the progress. So I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to happen. I think it's very achievable. You've had Danica Patrick, who's won an IndyCar race, sat on the pole at Daytona. So we just need volumes of activity, and it all starts, with kind of mom and dad taking father or son or daughter to the racetrack. And so now that there's so much excitement around Formula One, you can see those numbers going. And then as we get more at the grassroots level, I think ultimately in 5, 6, 7 years, we'll start to see some great women racing drivers.
I'm a subject matter expert. I've got a 14-year-old daughter who's go-karting, so I keep a score of how many girls out there. And unfortunately, just even in the UK, it's still not above 10% on average.
Still not where it needs to be, but it's going the right direction.
It absolutely is growing massively, which is great. You mentioned Netflix. I think a lot of people that are here, a lot of people that have come to the sport have come through Drive to Survive. It's sort of become shorthand for the reason that the sport has grown. There are number of other factors, aren't there, within that since Liberty have come in. But I think the easy way to say is it's the Netflix effect. But there are 1,000 other decisions that Liberty made that allowed the sport to open up, as you just described.
Yeah, Netflix, you got to kind of put it number one on the list, and it is kind of our default Netflix, and I think they deserve a huge amount of credit, but so do all the other media partners, the digital world.
Especially the race.
Especially the race.
They've done a brilliant job.
And, well, look at where they are to where they've come from. I think it's now kind of the leading digital outlet for motor racing fans. It is for me. It's my go-to.
It is an ambassador role for you. Zach,
Yeah, well.
Thank you.
And then I think the way we've just opened up the sport, we've turned. I've never understood. We have some people in our sport who still go sport and entertainment are different things, and I just can't get my head around that, because whether you buy a ticket to a motor race, a movie theater, a fireworks show, it's entertainment. So we have an awesome sport that's highly entertaining, and I think Liberty's opened up access. We're showing people, the drivers are very well known. So I think it's been a lot of different activity, but I think inclusiveness is ultimately what's opened up the sport, and people gone, this is a awesome sport. I've never seen something where people have gone from, and I get stopped all the time, I never used to follow Formula One, to now I won't miss it. Like, you've gone from no awareness to avid fan in one season of Netflix, and I think that just shows how cool the sport is.
As we said, you're a racing guy, but you're a marketing guy. We've had Drive to Survive. We had the F1 movie by Apple, Apple's biggest ever movie, Brad Pitt's biggest ever movie, sport's biggest ever movie. What's next? What's the next content play?
Well, there's going to be another Brad Pitt movie. I thought he did a good job co-starring in that with me.
Is that breaking news?
No, I think that's kind of known.
You heard it here.
If it isn't breaking news, I guess it is now.
Follow this story on the race.
So I think more kind of content. One of the things that people are fascinated by is the technology in our sport. It's off the charts, and you can pitch it at very different levels. If you're really into tech, you can kind of have a conversation that most people would not know what language you're speaking. So I think that's one of the things, and I thought the movie had some great cinematography of kind of how it showed the speed and kind of the violence of Formula One, in the sense of how aggressive these race cars are. So I'd like to see us get a little bit more into the tech space, but have different levels of engagement. So if you're not totally into tech, you get it. We have, I think the States does this better. We like to use acronyms and DRS, where America's a bit more, push to pass, boost, and you kind of go, I get it. And we get into kind of our technical terms, and what does DRS mean? We kind of take for granted it's drag reduction system, and which is going away. But with how sophisticated these cars are, I think we can do a better job of getting people in the cockpit and understanding what do drivers do, because drivers have to be highly intelligent, and it's a very physical sport. And I think those are two things that if you don't really follow the sport, don't have an appreciation of, and it's fascinating. So I think that's a story we can tell better.
We haven't got time, but we could talk for hours. 2026, as we heard just from the previous section, the biggest change in regulations ever. These engines specifically are, as you say, amazing. I mean, I can't even get my head around the technology that's in there, and I think you're right, we've got to do a big job. Just maybe 30 seconds on what that means in terms of, just for everyone here, some bullet points. What are the regulations in 2026? What's changed?
Everything's changed. So there's nothing that we're rolling over from our 2025 car to our 2026 car, which is exciting and terrifying all at the same time. So everyone kind of has an equal opportunity. In fact, we have some restrictions on us, our sport, in order to kind of balance it out like you have in other sports. The best team gets the last pick. The worst team gets the first pick. Ours, because we don't draft people, is wind tunnel time and CFD technology, where you develop the car. We'll get 70% of that, the least amount of development time in those two areas, than say the worst team that gets 140% of the time. And I think it's fifth, gets 100% of the time. And that's to give, help those at the back and slow us down. Coming into a new regulation, that's not ideal, but not everything's about quantity. It's about quality. So I'm trust my team, and they've done a great job. So I think we should be looking good. The cars are going to be lighter, half internal combustion, half battery, fully sustainable fuels, movable aerodynamic devices, and the way, because we're going to get rid of DRS, there'll be deployment, which is effectively a boost button, if you'd like, around the electrification. So it's a very sophisticated. I think the secret to success, I think it's going to be an engineer development race and drivers understanding how to get the most optimum lap time, because you'll be able to drive these cars different ways. And I think the smart drivers are going to be the ones that figure it out first, have a great relationship with the engineering team, and continue to win some races, I hope.
The drivers are certainly going to be very busy in the cars. Those that are good in the simulator are going to be on top. So I do worry about Lewis, but that's we'll see how that comes out. I've got two more questions. We're going to have to keep them really short. There's a lot of brands as I walk up and down the road here that are already involved in Formula 1. We've got a lot of people that are involved in brands maybe that are not in Formula 1. What would your piece of advice be if they want to get involved in Formula 1 as a partner?
Explore, meet with teams, leagues, I think like anything, you don't buy the first house you visit. You might end up buying the first house you visit, but you want to go see another 3 to confirm. So I think, exploring, understanding, talking to other partners that are in the sport, because there's a lot of new people in the sport. So I'm a believer in learning from other people. So, half of our race car are new brands. The Googles of the world have never historically looked at Formula One. So I think speaking with your peers, the fellow CMOs, CEOs, whatever the case may be, to understand how they looked at the sport, but starting with, you already know where you're trying to take your business, and then working with a team or an agency, because some of the teams have various levels of experience. Some are still kind of stuck a little bit in the right seller mode. Others are very sophisticated, and just trying to figure out where you take your business. The mistakes I see is when people kind of buy a sponsorship, a partnership, and haven't really thought through how they want to leverage it, and then they go, I did the wrong deal. So don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah. As you've seen, there's a tradition of asking a fun thing at the end of all of these question and answers, and I bet if I asked most people here, they would probably ask this same question: is you going to miss Christian?
Who?
Well, we've got his replacement coming on stage next. So
Laurent's done a very good job. He's done it. You culture in sport and in business and life is so important, and I think that's been our biggest strength. And I'm obsessed with our people, and I'm obsessed with our cultures. That's what I spend all my time on. And when things aren't going well, Red Bull's an unbelievable team. You can see where the stress was in the system. The performance started to dip. Laurent's come in. I think he's a very good leader, and the performance popped right back up. So I think, culture is what's critical in any business.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. Ladies and gentlemen, Zach Brown.
Thank you, everyone.